Good evening, everybody. Nice to see so many people in already. Thank you very much. So this is the Friday stream, 6 p.m. BST, and we will be having Nathan Oakley make a presentation about logical fallacies. So, a few shout outs to some of the people in. Jose, thank you very much for sending everybody over from your stream. I know you've just shut yours down and asked them to come over here. So, absolutely, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Cynical Skeptic, hello, thank you very much. Cynical Skeptic's been very helpful to me in the past. He sent me some memory for my PC, so thank you very much. He shipped that from the US. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, so, Nathan, are you there, my friend? How are you?
I'm good, Ranty. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks. Right, okay, well, without further ado, I think what we're going to do is we're just going to get into what you've actually presented. Now, before anybody says too much about the presentation itself, I know for a fact that it was at very short notice, so I think you had less than 24 hours to prepare for this, and you literally stepped in at the last minute because I needed a flat earther to do a presentation today. Because we have a globe earther doing a presentation later, so that will be just in 3 hours' time. And I've seen the presentation, and it is, it's quite a well put together presentation. So if you're a glober, I'm sure you'll like that. Anyway, without further ado, we'll get on to the main part of this part, which is logical fallacy with Nathan Oakley.
We had a couple more. Did you see? 1 second. Did you see the comment he made about you?
No, I don't pay much attention to comments. I'm going to hit record, right, and I'm going to just explain what's going on. So basically what's going on is I've just finished doing my little recording of Tim Osmans, and I'll be honest, I haven't put a great deal of effort into it. So, nevertheless, John's called and I've explained what I've done. I haven't actually got to playing my video with the little time hacks. But from what I understand, John's gone through it and identified every single logical fallacy in what Tim's done. And he's averaging a logical fallacy a minute, which I think's great. But we're going to see how. I'm more than happy for you to go through them. We'll listen to them one at a time.
Now, I'm not going to go through every single fallacy, but there's 88 fallacies, and from a self-purported genius. He said somebody asked a question on why he was wasting his time on ranties, being a genius that he is. I don't know if that person wrote it, but that's what he said over the stream. So I counted 88 fallacies. So there is at least 88 fallacies that he committed during the presentation, no less than. And I categorized them mainly from. I kind of did this sort of in a not half-assed, but it I kind of chopped it up. I went from. I first started. It was late. Hold on 1 second. Right here, 128.12. For whatever reason, I started there. I can't remember. So I did from 128.12 to, what was the last one? 135.25. So, and then I went back and I started at the beginning and then categorized the rest of them, the rest of the fallacies. So, like I said, there was a total of, I totaled them all up. There was 88 fallacies. And these are the categories: reification, baseless assertions, non sequiturs, intent, motive fallacies, straw man, stereotype, ad homs, begging the question fallacy, and genetic fallacies. The ad homs and the baseless assertions were running neck to neck for some time, but it seemed like the baseless assertions pulled it out at the end. So it's roughly a fallacy a minute, somewhere real close to that for the time that he spoke. not the whole time of the video. So, and there's all the categories. I went ahead and timed it all out. So if anyone needs these, if we need to support all these fallacies, that's no problem. I got them time hacked. We can go through them too. It's just surface stuff. The next one, a couple new ones that I didn't hear before was you can't troll a pro troll. So it begs the question, why are we even entertaining a presentation from a self-admitted pro troll? I mean, why would we do that? Why would anyone do that? I mean, you hammered the C4 fire and bashed your own head in with the shovel right from the start. So the 126.05 from Timmy. Okay, so I mean, I could do sticks in the ground. I could do all that kind of stuff. But at a certain point, a presupposition actually turns into something that's proven in knowledge. And the only reason why that person actually saying presupposition is because I was the one that taught that to fucking Nathan Oakley. So he started using a lot of that stuff I said against the Glober. So, number one, so a presupposition turns into proven and knowledge. When is this like a time standard? Is it qualitative or quantitative? A time standard? What? Just by magic? Who knows? And I thought you'd like this, Nathan. He taught you presuppositions, dude.
Yeah, did he bollocks?
So I wanted to leave that one for you. Ironically, Ranty's picture of 18 miles at 1 foot short of shore in the background implode Timmy Clown's entire argument, right? While he's answering questions, he's got that picture behind him, right? He's got that while he's answering the questions about how it's a sphere Earth, right? His picture's behind him. It's the irony is just as thick as molasses, right? I mean, these pictures right here, or these photographs, pummel his entire argument right from get-go. So I thought it was quite funny to have his picture back here. I don't know if anyone else caught that, but my word, people. Cool. So how does XYZ Cartesian coordinates prove the Earth's curvature? That's what I want to know. I mean, he said it like 3 or 4 times. I'm still wondering why. At 1:18:22, he says, why is it not the Earth curving? Timmy, did you forget what your presentation was about, Window Licker? It's not our job to refute something you haven't proven, a.k.a. a just so story. Duh. And this one's classic. At 125.09, you guys need to come up with a flat Earth curve calculator. I mean, married bachelors are blushing. Flat Earth curve? Really? That's quite interesting. I'd like to see that. Clown. 3715. I saw about 12 to 19 different satellites it was using, from Russian satellites like GLONASS and even American GPS satellites. Oh, really? You saw them? You didn't show them. We want to see the satellites you saw, right? You said you saw them. Can you share that with us? Oh, and I copied that last one over again where he took credit for, I guess, teaching you presupposition. It's a presupposition class. 3904, Walter Bislin, the genius here. That's what he said, right? Yeah. The genius that deletes entire threads when his science and intellectual acumen gets compromised. I caught him in a thread. I think it was Taboo Conspiracy. But 6 or 8 months ago, he just posted an opening post, an OP, like 2 minutes earlier, and someone directed me to Taboo Conspiracy's video for something. I can't even remember what it was. And I seen Walter Bislin there. So he wrote a post, and I went ahead and responded. He didn't have any clue of the scientific method whatsoever. And I exposed him in one post. right? And a couple other people went in there and started posting, laughing at him. I go back like an hour later. It was like after dinner. I'm searching for my post. I'm trying to get the notifications, right? Because other people I got the notifications from the other people posting in the thread. Hit the notifications, and it wouldn't take me anywhere. I'm sitting there, what the heck? I go back into the main video, search out it. He deleted the entire thread. Yeah, that's genius, all right. Friggin' clown.
I mentioned that.
4911, Raleigh criterion nonsense. So you think the Raleigh criterion, the diffraction limit, is nonsense, Timmy? Really? That's quite interesting. You mentioned Nathan's name. This is a flat earth or an earth curve, an earth curve presentation, right? You mentioned Nathan's name 13 friggin' times, my name 5 times. You charge Anthony Riley with trolling, yet refer to yourself as a professional troll. I mean, which is just stupid. Then you mentioned Rob Skiba, Jay Tolan, Jane Alfredo, Josh Nowicki, Jared, Glowbusters Bob, Soundly Bob the Science Guy. I was going to put the numbers in here of the number of times you mentioned them, but I thought it was just overkill. You were obsessed with the two $20,000 GPS units. Does the cost prove the spinning ball, Timmy? You mentioned experiments 6 times when you don't know what one is. You also said at 126.32, compared to a person like myself who has done multiple tests and observations and experiments, right? Well, number one, tests are experiments, you half-wit. And you have demonstrated for years that you don't even know what a scientific experiment is. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You didn't post any experiments in your presentation here, that's for sure. So like I said, the Earth curvature presentation with, check these out. Gulf of Tonkin, 9/11, Buffalo, Nats, Mormon building, your sandals. Hey, can you show those ankles? Angular size of the sun 3 times. When challenged as to why you brought that up, you respond at 133.01. It's very simple if you actually open your ears. Wow, what a response that was. It was riveting. Meticulous attention to detail. Excruciating attention to detail. OCD-like is your mantra. 2 celestial points 3 times. For what? Watching YouTube videos, conspiracy 9 times, and how long you been here. Solar and lunar eclipses, the equinox observation, fluoride in water, and flat earthers 17 friggin' times, all stereotype fallacies. All of them. 916, I may be so bold to actually say experiment across the Bonneville sulflex. Like, yeah, you just say it. It's not a scientific experiment. You identify the hypothesis, independent, dependent control variables, because you don't know what a scientific experiment is. 1343, these buildings are actually being obstructed. But as far as the Mormon building here, half the building is being obstructed by what flat earth is called flat water, whatever the hell that means. And like I said, this place is extremely level. Well, Timmy, level is flat. Newsflash. Reification fallacy 2, by what flat earth is called flat water. That doesn't, I should have put a non sequitur fallacy. It's 89 fallacies. A lot of these observations are done from the Antelope Island Causeway. That's great. Observing natural phenomena are merely the first step of the scientific method. You didn't state one, and you never stated a single hypothesis in your entire presentation. Ergo, your observations along with the accompanying just so story, your just so story take are absolutely worthless. Right? Let's take a look at those. I was just looking at your little Antelope Island nonsense. Where'd you go? See, I did this, so you didn't want to get into any details of your little Antelope Island. So I went and took a look. I tried to get as close as I could to what you had on the video. All right. So let's roll on over here to point K. This is where you said you were about. Like I said, you weren't specific, so I got specific for you. So we got somewhere around 42. What do I have? 4206, saying 4205. You get the picture, though. 4205, 4206. Right? That's point K. Let's go to point J. So we're going to go all the way over on this side, across the highway. I didn't go all the way to your buildings. We're going to go down here to point J, right? Right where it's about at the city limits right here, right before it gets to the Salt Lake. So what do we got right here? We got an elevation of 4225, 4226. So that's a 20-foot difference, 20 feet from point K back that away to point J. Do you see the problem here? Right? This is a 20-mile observation. How many feet drop should you have? Over 20 miles. Can anyone guess?
Absolute
How many
load.
feet drop over 20 miles should you have? That's vertical drop.
Go on.
I know the answer. It's 266 feet. You got 20. Where's the 240-foot drop here? That's what I want to know. Where'd that go? You're going to have to show 240 feet somewhere, right? Probably in your imagination, like everything else is. Let's see what else we got here. 37 miles from 1848. 37 miles of water that is basically completely level. There's really no other place that I've ever seen in my life that has these kind of conditions. Well, level's flat. So thanks a lot, Timmy. Thanks for confirming that for us. 1913, seeing white caps of mountains as clear as day from nearly 84, probably about 70 miles on those, but this is something you just wouldn't expect on a flat earth. Really? Why? You didn't tell us why. Did you forget posting the reason? You just make a declaration and that's it. Unbelievable. 1926. So in comparison to near the ground, there's a little bit of kind of mirroring and a little bit of haziness, but really not really. But really not really. You want to try that one again? Non sequitur, fallacy, doublespeak. 1954. So the important thing is to basically repeat these tests, these observations. So you think tests are observations, huh? What's your independent variable? Your frigging eyelids? Or your imagination? Or a combination of the two? Number one, tests are experiments. Observations are not experiments. Number two, the repeatability part of the empirical scientific method is context with the experiment, not the observed phenomenon. You don't keep on opening up your eyelids and looking to be repeated, clown. Number three, you didn't have an observed phenomenon. Here, all you had was an observation of a concrete noun, whitecaps, not scientific. 2027, these observations, in my opinion, kill the flat earth, and it actually has a lot of flat earthers making excuses. Really? Well, we're not interested in your opinion, Timmy. Not from professional trolls. Number two, observations with an accompanying just so story are absolutely worthless. And stereotype fallacy with the invariable baseless assertion fallacy with a cherry on top ad hom. These usually go in, they're usually kissing sisters. You could substitute straw man for ad hom. It just depends on how you context and where you're headed. Yeah, we're up to 86 different excuses now. Yeah, they're not excuses. They're actual reasons. So
Okay, hold on. I just want to bring that up on screen. So I saw where you were going and brought it up in advance, right? So, yeah, he's got this great big long list. I thought it was some other dudes. But basically, these are all the things that get called Earth curve. Every single thing on this list will be changed into the single assertion made by the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator. So it's not a list of flat earthers' excuses, it's a list of things that will get reified into earth curve, the single assertion made by the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator. So number 1 on his list is perspective. It's like, oh right, so the picture he goes on to show, like moments later, absolutely includes perspective, and as does every single picture ever taken by any camera ever, every single video recorded in history ever, every single image taken in by every eyeball ever will include perspective. And yet, later on he goes on about bloody, I can't remember how I phrased it, something about we must use orthographic view. I'm like, yeah, you're bloody right, you'll have to use orthographic view, because you're going to be putting it in Muppet vision and taking away the very nature of the picture itself, the perspective, and it's number 1 on their bloody list. So it's alright to call it Earth curve, but you can be damn sure that every single one of those 38 things on that list, or however many he said, is going to be called Earth curve. That was one of the main points I was going to focus on, but so far, John, I've got to be honest, you're absolutely blown what I did out of the water, so Ranty's going to be getting this.
So like, yeah, he has 86 of them, right? They're all nonsense. I don't know why they even trouble themselves with it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just trying to make light of the situation, and it's fallen on deaf ears, folks. 2229, you can only see the horizon at a certain distance, and when you start to rise up, you start to see further and further of that horizon. That's why the sun actually sets without changing angular size throughout the day. These things are pretty intuitive. Truthfully, unless you're having issues with conspiracy and want to believe or you want to be part of a gang or whatever, this is just a simple non sequitur fallacy. It says nothing absolutely to do with the sun changing angular size. We might put that in Ballbusters again, because he's stuck with that stupid argument. And of course, your family-friendly at-home fallacy times 2, right?
Just before you move on, so let's see if I can do this first time. It's the question they formulate if you rearrange the words into their actual meanings. So why does the not actual apparent size in brackets size of the sun not change its not actual, again in brackets, angular size, as it moves from its not actual position?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. What a joke that is, man. Yeah, you got it. 2411. One doesn't negate the fact, with all of my observations, it doesn't negate the fact that there's 2 celestial points. Timmy, you weren't talking about the stars in this presentation. Ergo, non sequitur fallacy. It doesn't follow. You're out of context. And aren't there quite a few more? Like trillions of celestial points? Unbelievable. 2446. One of the most beautiful days ever, actually. I protest. I say June 1st, 1978 was the most beautiful days ever. Unbelievable. 2456. Seeing Strong's Knob, this is a actual place, so I didn't capitalize it. Sorry about that. Start to be obstructed by what is called flat water. And to me, flat water, looking above the flat water, and if you think about it orthographically, in other words, Muppet vision, even though that's kind of like heresy to some people, you would expect to see the whole thing, and we don't near the ground. Oh, I wonder why.
Can I interrupt again here? You've just got shaking my fucking head. Right. So we've got, where shall I start from? No flat water, looking above the flat water. Okay. And if you think about it orthographically, even though that's kind of like heresy to some people. Right, heresy to quantify this, which is absolutely a perspective view, with Muppet vision, where, and for your audience members that don't know what we're talking about when we say Muppet vision, when he says orthographic, what he means is you'll have a picture of an observer here on the left-hand side, and you'll have the target, the mountain, on the right-hand side. And it's quantified in feet and inches. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that we're looking at a building that's 12 feet. It's twice the size of the man. So if you move that 12 feet closer, it's still going to say the same size in its representation. So it doesn't matter if it's here or here or here, it's still the same size. And in the picture, you see the side of your own head, Muppet Vision. So while seeing the side of your own head and describing things in their actual sizes, as you move them around, you can move them indefinitely. It'll still say the same size, which means that you've effectively removed all aspects of perspective when you talk orthographically, because a 10-foot wall is still going to be representative as a 10-foot wall if the scale on my left to right on the screen now, if this is a line that you're drawing your observation on with you on the left and the observation point on the right, well, it doesn't matter if you make that scale 1 mile, or you make this scale 100 miles, or you make this scale 1 million miles, you'll still have the observer and the observed in the same frame with the same scale, and you can still see them. You can still draw a line between the two things. And that's precisely what they do in the calculator. They remove all aspects of perspective by putting it in an orthographic view. So it's not heresy. It's just not how we see the world. We see perspective. The mathematics takes the effect of perspective, objects getting smaller until they disappear, and calls it Earth curve. So it's heresy, if you like, because it's not real. Sorry to babble on over your very hard work.
No, keep going. You can stop me whenever. In fact, I'm going to stop after each one to see if you already see what your take is. So 2539, we've actually done modeling of my observations. Walter Bislin, thankfully, has done really good modeling of my observations, what it would look like on a globe Earth and what it would look like on a flat Earth. And you can actually mess around with the fraction on this. I mean, this guy is an absolute amazing modeler. And so much so, he actually made a model of the flat Earth. It's called the Flat Earth Dome model. Simply a reification model. That's just as simple as that. We've already went over Walter Bislin. He's just a fraud and a moron, deleting his threads. Anything on that?
Yeah, it's just reification all over the place. They love their models. Everything's got to be what it compares to their model when we don't live on a model. Just look up reification fallacy. That's what they're doing. We don't live on a model. The map is not the terrain. It's nonsense. It's pseudoscience. It's definitely not proving where we live. In fact, it proves absolutely nothing. It demonstrates that they can beg the question and assume their outcome, because when they're comparing their quote-unquote model to reality, they're removing perspective, assuming an R value, and the outcome's always in their favour. It's an Earth curve calculator. It's a model that begs the question. You're always going to start any argument with a globe head on a sphere, essentially begging the question, starting with the outcome already in place. And the calculator is absolutely no different. Walter Bislin's got an R value, radius, Earth radius. He already knows the outcome. How's he going to be proving anything when he already has the outcome in his calculator? Well, he isn't. He's just begging the question.
Precisely. 2627, because it is the best model and best explanation for how the things in the sky, as far as the sun and moon, will work. Again, another reification fallacy. Number 2, non sequitur fallacy. Again, Timmy Clown, your presentation is on Earth curvature, not the sun and the moon. Anything there?
Not really. I mean, yeah, he went on about antipodal star rotation and celestial points, and I didn't really pick up on that. But yeah, right. Yeah, it was supposed to be demonstrating Earth curve, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what the presentation's about. 2721. I can't see the bottoms of the buildings. I can't see I-5. I can't see so much that, in my opinion, until better evidence is out, should be seen. It really should be seen. This should not be happening on a flat Earth. Number 1, why can't they be seen? You didn't say so. Then scientifically validate it, because you keep saying curve, which is a cause and effect of the unseen, right? So you got to validate this, man. You just can't tell us. You just can't give us your just so story. It's worthless. Number 2, like I said, we don't care about your fuckwit opinion, or anyone's opinion for that matter. Number 3, observations alone, they're not evidence. Ah! Anything there?
Yeah, it's bloody all we ever get. We get essentially pseudo-hypothesis, an assertion of a presupposed cause, but declared as the cause. So they've not validated it, they've not put it through the scientific method, they've not, they've not wiggled anything. They've just made an observation and made a declaration and asserted cause. And there's a method for that. Yeah, the method that he babbled on about when he kept on saying that he knows about experiments and knows about science, which he absolutely does not. He hasn't got the vaguest clue. But he's talking about cause and effect relationships based on observation, just so stories.
Yep. He's not the only one. Got a whole slew of them. So 2825, I put his collage of pictures from Salt Lake. I figured you had that covered. You know, the typical thing he brings with him. It's tied to his friggin' heels, like the counterclockwise and clockwise star rotation, right? Right. I figured you dealt with that.
Well, this is it. This is going to be what gets submitted to Ranty. So I'm recording this, and this is what Ranty gets, whether he likes it or not. You've done a lot more work than I have, and I'm not going to let a good presentation that's been thoroughly gone through go to waste. Why would I? I mean, mine will get dusted under the mat, never to be spoken about.
Yeah, but you know, that's okay. Like I said, I didn't pull up his collage of pictures from Salt Lake. Everyone's figured you had that covered. You know, the typical thing he brings with him. It's tied to his friggin' heels, monkey, like the counter. I mean, we've been all over those photos before. In fact, I just crushed it with the elevation from Google Earth. Right? We just crushed those into the incoherent oblivion. So 2854. In my opinion, people say that they're truth seekers, but really what they're trying to do is seek for excuses to continue their bias, their conspiratorial bias, a narrative of a flat earth. And I think it's really intellectually dishonest that they can see things and not actually say, well, perhaps it could be curvature. Well, again, we don't care about your retard opinion. 2, appeal to intent motive fallacy. 3, 2 baseless ipsy-dixit bare assertion fallacies. 4, 3 ad hom fallacies. Right in here. Unbelievable. Anything there? Sorry.
Yeah, it's the same old story, isn't it? He's asserting cause or implying it, or how is he even? He's saying that we should be inferring his begging the question fallacy. It's so convoluted, but what he's basically saying is you should assume it's cause that I assume it is, and then declare it is when I haven't validated it. You should be doing that also, is what he's saying. Let's have another read. What does he say? Dishonest that they see things and not actually say, well, perhaps it could be curvature. Well, yeah, that's a supposition, isn't it? A supposition like in a hypothesis. But the problem with that is that you have to go forward and actually validate that what you suppose causes it. Yeah, well, perhaps it could be. Now you want to validate that shit. Don't just suppose it and then declare it as it being right. That. And then moan at me because I haven't presupposed it like you have, you fundy.
Exactly. 2922, it can be modeled and matches the globe Earth perfectly. Guess what this is? Well, it's a reification combined with begging the question fallacies, right? Because you have yet to prove this, and this is a reification fallacy. Simple. Anything there? Too easy. 3010. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll interrupt when I've got something.
Okay. 3010. You're going to get a little bit of inferior mirage in here. In here, it looks like a little bit of mirroring, but the fact still remains that you can't see the bottom of the buildings. And that's a big deal for me as far as me going out and actually testing these things. Well, you haven't tested a damn thing. You just looked at it and declared it. Duh. Same old stuff. 3051, I just don't see much of a conspiracy really to be had as far as cui bono in this whole thing. Again, Timmy, your presentation is on Earth curvature, not conspiracies. Ergo, another non sequitur fallacy just doesn't follow. I mean, if you don't know what cui bono, what the particulars of this is, then I don't know. I can't help you. 3125. Some of the globe cucks that will say, well, there's got to be 1 million people in on this conspiracy. Well, no. You know, if the mathematics was right, and you could have perhaps a few thousand people that would know it to a full extent. But really, it's so hard at this point for me to believe that the flat Earth has any merit at all. Again, your presentation is on Earth curvature, Timmy Clown, not conspiracies. Another non sequitur fallacy. And I want to see these conspiracy mathematics. That's what I want to see. Is this a special category of mathematics? Maybe more than two mathematicians get involved here? Make it conspiracy? Huh? Number 3, we don't care about the friggin' beliefs of demonstrated imbecile. You. Anything? 128.12. What does work geometrically are the curve calculators. Yeah. You want any of this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just bullshit. It's again back to him asserting that we've got to be in Muppet vision. So your geometric, perspective hijacking, proof of nothing, begging the question curve calculator. It's got an R value. It already knows the outcome. Therefore, it's absolutely proving nothing. It's perspective hijacking. Oh, well, it's heresy to say that we should see the side of our own bloody head when we don't in a picture. Yeah, that's what your geometric calculators are relying on. Removing all aspects of perspective. Yeah, heresy, right, Tim? Yeah, no, just not reality. So your geometric calculator that assumes its outcome and already has an R value ain't proving anything. It's just a reification fallacy and a hijacking of the actual reality that we see. We do see perspective. Yet it's number 1 on their list of our excuses for why things disappear in the distance. Oh yeah, because your single cause curve calculator's only got one thing to say about it, hasn't it? Earth curve. Oh right, it's a bit of a foggy day. No, Earth curve. Oh well, it could be too far to see. It could be too small. Earth curve. Yeah, that's the only cause it can ever assert. So what your geometric calculator says is that perspective isn't real. That you see the side of your own head. So, that's all I've got to say about that.
That's all you need to say about that. In fact, you said too much. Everything after laughing out loud. 128.58. We are the people that actually go and spend money and go and do these observations. And then when somebody comes in and says, oh, you're begging the question. Like, no, actually, I try to demonstrate how we tested the supposed presupposition, and you just won't have it because you're thick or something. Number 1, you haven't conducted a single test. Duh, clown, my word. And, your cherry on top at-home fallacy.
Yeah, I've got something to add to that as well. So, I'm sick of this. Test is contextualised. If he's talking science, which he bloody is, he's declaring how he knows experiments and that he's doing tests. Yeah, tests in this context means experiment, hypothesis test. Now you've got hypothesis, but they're just so stories that come with an assertion at the end. Your test is an observation that you've made. That's what you call a test. It's yet another greasing of the skids of scientific vernacular. A test, in this circumstance, when you're claiming to be scientific, is a bloody experiment. It's not you opening the shutter on a camera or flying a drone for a day.
129.48. People like, and I'll share my screen really quick. People like Jay Tollin here who have the tip of a mountain at 123 miles away, and 6,000 feet of this mountain is being, I think, obstructed. I didn't get the last part of that. I don't have the photo. We had the photo the other day. I think we were on there with Zanuck. He was using the same photo and trying to say the same thing.
Does he show it on the stream?
Yes.
What is it, 128?
It's 129.48.
Yeah, I've got it up. Oh, it's giving me an ad. Ranty. Sorry, Ranty. I'm gonna have to skip your ad, I'm afraid, Ranty. Okay, so yeah, I've got it up on screen now. Behold the flat Earth, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You can see the city below it, right? I can't see the picture in here.
Yeah, I've got it up with the city below.
Why don't you take over? I can't see it.
Well, okay, so yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, if you're claiming there's a certain amount of the mountain missing at the bottom, well, you can see the city. What bloody hell's he going on about? Not only that, if I put your screen back up again, let's just get rid of this. You've got it in the measurement. So he's saying exactly as I described earlier when I was trying to describe Muppet Vision. The quantification is always going to be given in feet and inches, what I would call whole numbers, but actual sizes. Well, the actual size, 6,000 feet in this instance, is a number that doesn't change at any distance. So 6,000 feet. If you were at the base of the mountain, you could be looking up at the top of the 6,000 feet, right? But as it gets further and further and further away, its angular size reduces. Something that they exclude when they go into orthographic view. Or heresy, as Tim Osmans seems to think we think it is. Well, no, it just misrepresents how you actually see things. This 6,000 feet he's claiming missing is an angular size depending on its distance. It's not an actual size that you see things in photographs. You see them represented by their not actual size. Angular size. It's relative to its distance, and it will get smaller and smaller and smaller until it disappears from the bottom first, based on the most limited angle. There we go. That's my waffle.
Precisely. Exactly. 133.16. There's geometry to the Earth other than flat, and it's curved downwards away from you, and it's very evident in all of my evidence when it comes to the drone and camera photography. So you have evidence of 8 inches per mile squared vertical drop. Does the drone and camera have a built-in dropometer, Timmy? I mean, you're just making a declaration here. There's nothing here. There's no substance whatsoever. You're like a priest. (133.47) Einstein said this, or second law of thermodynamics, this definition says this. All of where they're actually quoting from are from sphere Earth people, so they just try to cherry pick stuff to try to fit their narrative, right? Number one, it's citing from, not just quoting. All these knuckleheads don't know the difference between citations, quotes, references. They have big problems there. Number two, the beliefs of people, that is spare Earth, Democrat, Republican, favorite ice creams, etc., have absolutely nothing to do with what recognized secular scientists, that's alleged, have demonstrated and documented. Duh. Number three, it's quite apparent that the power of hostile witnesses is completely lost on you, isn't it? Number four, here we go, generalized, sweeping, baseless assertion, cherry picking, and you don't even know what it is and means. Anything with that?
Yeah. So you gave an example about this ages ago, which was about a court case, and the murderer is locked up in his cell in the police station, and he's got a pen and a piece of paper. It's an unlikely scenario. But anyway, he's writing down his diaries and his notes, and he's scribbling there for day after day after day while he's waiting for his trial. And one day, a guard comes in and takes the notepad off him, and they read through it, and when they get to about page 7, they read a full confession of how he did the murders in detail, and it matches every single shred of forensic evidence that they've got perfectly. So there's no gaps in any of the evidence anymore, and there's even a few little teasers that they didn't know about that they go and find because of this confession. They flick forward to page 40, and he starts telling on page 40 about how he is actually a spaghetti monster, and that he will slip through the bars if he's ever locked up, or turn into a vapour and escape instantly if they don't keep him in a certain type of cell. So by their standards, the globe heads, they would declare that because in the same reference the person's declaring that they're a spaghetti monster that can turn into gas and escape from any jail cell, that is ultimately true because part of the citation was also specifically correct in that regard.
Yeah, that went a little bit off the reservation in my example, but yeah, it's somewhat like that. It's friggin' stupid. More or less that he wrote down, let's say he killed 12 people, and he wrote down every single murder, details everything, matches all, like you said, matches all the forensic evidence. But on page, 3, 7, and 10, at the bottom, he says, I am innocent. Right?
That was it. That's miles better. I couldn't remember it. The punchline, terrible. So yeah, exactly. In page 10, he says, "I didn't do any of these crimes. I was actually in Barbados. I'd taken a flight there."
That's right. That's right. So the judge will not allow the prosecutor to question him anymore because the prosecutor must take the "I am innocent" with the entire reference. Right? Not with your citations in the forward, but since you read it, since it's in that same citation, the case against him is dropped. The prosecutor must believe that he's innocent. That's how stupid this is. I mean, high school. I already know as soon as anyone brings this topic up, right? I already know two things. Number one, they haven't recently graduated high school, or it could be number two, they never attended university ever. They've never reviewed scientific literature. They've never done a research study themselves. It's those two choices. You just hammer yourself in the head with a friggin' shovel. And you don't realize it. I love it. I love it when you keep doing it. Please keep doing it. Try to figure out what the difference is between citations and references. Okay? Freaking clowns, man. 134.06, if the Earth isn't spinning and it's geocentric, which I still hold perhaps a 5% chance, well, then it's still a sphere, dude. Really? This is a non sequitur fallacy from the Black Lagoon. The premise doesn't follow, or the conclusion doesn't follow from its premise in any way, shape, or form. Show empirically how you reached the 5% chance. I want to see that. Of course, you don't know what empirical is either. You think empirical means observation. You understand that they're two different words, right? Empirical and observation. Empirical goes a little bit further. In fact, it summarizes the scientific method. To be empirical, you must observe it, so you're right. But then there's three other ones. You know what those three other ones are? Repeatability, testability, falsifiability. That's what empirical means. I must have told you this like 50 times over the past 3 years, but nope. You still on that same, but it's empirical. I observed it. P.S. You don't understand that the scientific method doesn't deal with probabilities. That's induction. 1 iota, right? Obviously rhetorical.
It's also just a down and right, clumsy, begging the question fallacy. So saying if the Earth isn't a spinning geocentric, is that how he said it? Which I still hold perhaps 5% chance, then it's still a dude. Then it's still a sphere, dude. Well, what you're saying is if Earth, which you're automatically dictating to us in this statement, is spherical, but it just doesn't spin, then it's still a spherical. It's also, isn't it also a clumsy affirming the consequent?
It's a begging the question fallacy. That's
it's definitely a begging the question fallacy. It's not really. It's not formalised well with the negatives in there for isn't spinning, yes. but nevertheless, it's halfway there to being affirming the consequent. It isn't, but it's definitely a clumsy begging the question fallacy. Just it proves bugger all other than he can assume his outcome.
Yes. So we're up to 90 fallacies, right? We were at 88. You just pointed out two more. One previously and then that one. Yep. So we're up to 90 when we get there. I love this one. I think this is the one. Yeah. 138.15. A lot of very ignorant people have fallen for the flat earth. Really? Well, let's take a look at some of the globe-tard people. Brenda, observation, shoe. Hypothesis, it's a shoe. The rumpus, air is not the atmosphere. George, yeah. A closed thermos is an open system. Steve McRae, the speed of sound in a vacuum is constant. Miles Davis, your argument can be dishonest without having the intention to deceive. Phil Nye, the physics guy, the physical sciences don't care about the natural world. Sly Sparkane, my physics experiment was blind. Conspiracy Cats, the second law of thermodynamics is about the movement of energy, not the movement of matter. So what do you call this? Is this the Rhodes Scholars? Unbelievable. Anything here?
Just great. Great. I had to mute while I chuckled.
Which one?
Mostly Brenda, but air is not the atmosphere is priceless. George Netanyahu, a closed thermos is an open system. I remember him saying that to me. I didn't hear Steve's one, but they still argue that, right? When you bring up Steve McRae, the speed of sound is constant in a vacuum. You know what their response to that is? Yeah, it's zero.
It's constantly zero.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Like his IQ. Unbelievable, man. Yeah. I don't want to pick a favorite because they're all equally stupefying. But Phil Nye, the physical sciences don't care about the natural world.
What's another word for the physical sciences? What would that be? Natural science.
Now, the reason why it's so good is because he's a self-professed PhD in physics. This bonehead. That's why I kind of lean more towards that one. But just remember, a lot of very ignorant people have fallen for the flat earth. And Timmy, we could add you here. I could put any of the number of comments I already went over, but I thought that it would be painfully redundant.
That'd be moot.
It's moot. No, it's mute. M-U-T. Oh, boy. Memories. So 135.25. These people are primarily watching YouTube videos. So, number one, stereotype fallacy, which invariably leads to a generalized, sweeping, ipsy-dixit, baseless, bare assertion fallacy, and the straw man. So, you, like Gem Panda, are diviners of complete unnamed strangers' behaviors? Have you considered carnival as a vocation yet, sir? I have an idea. Why don't you put together a traveling circus with all the usual suspects and go on tour? You can call it Globe-Tard Spinning Space Monkeys Against Common Sense and Critical Thought, with a cherry on top, how to sustain a below second grade level science acumen in the 21st century, all the while pretending to be Bill Nye's wee gimp. For the main event, perhaps you could troll people with girly ankles and show how they rotate clockwise and counterclockwise around two celestial points, save for sprains. For the after show, you and Mick West can guess people's weights, while you have Rumpus, a.k.a. Mr. Air is Not the Atmosphere, Sly, and Gem Panda bark for the Yak Woman and have Conspiracy Flaps be a pixie dust spreader for the Tilt-A-Whirl. Then for the finale, titled Be Kind to Dumb Animal Week, have Red's Rhetoric mount a hobbled pig in a mud bog pen wearing nothing but a purple tutu and have a blindfolded Sean, audio guy, in a chartreuse Speedo and halter top attempt to locate and catch the dynamic duo and remove the purple tutu from Red's torso. Each time it's successfully removed, have Jose J.G. Gonzalez release a jackrabbit with a can of butane duct taped to its back into the pen while Hillbilly Blue Balls, the redneck retard, simultaneously releases 10 blue tick coonhounds into the crowd. Have the onlookers attempt to figure out who the dumb animal actually is. The winners get a Tickle Me Soundly doll that, when prodded, attempts to convince crayon munchers that they live on planet Orleans Parish and whispers inane instructions on how to square the circle in 10 different languages. For the finale, have Steve McClown of the Clan McClowns be the MC and hold rolling 6-hour carnival tent vigils for long-age, apatheistic, agnostic, theological non-cognitivists that try to ascertain or conjure what the definitive atheist actually is. How about that?
Epic.
So let's change this. That's a 9-0 bagger right there. We'll have to adjust. It's one more begging the question fallacy. And I can't recall the other.
So we've got reification, 13 counts. Baseless assertion, 22 counts. Non sequitur fallacy, 9 counts. Intent motive fallacy, 2 counts. Strawman fallacy, 4 counts. Stereotyping fallacy, 12 counts. Ad hominems, 20 counts. Begging the question, 4 counts. And genetic fallacy, 3 counts. Tim Osmans guilty of 90 fallacies on Ranty's Roundtable.
It's roughly a fallacy a minute, right around there, because we got 90 fallacies. He didn't. It's right around 90 minutes that he spoke. You know, minus the music and Ranty speaking and all that nonsense. So roughly,
Amazing.
90 fallacies. We can go on. That's no problem. You think I'm just making this up? No. I can go. We have them documented. I got them documented and timestamped. So if you want to see them or hear them, no problem. Just get in touch with Nathan and I'll send them to you.
Just scroll through so that while I'm talking, because I just want to add something, because I was supposed to do this presentation and you've done 99% of the work, and this is definitely what Ranty's going to be getting, because it's, you know, miles better than I would ever done, and already I've spent more time on this than I would want to, and you've obviously gone through it with a fine-tooth comb and identified 90 fallacies, and it was just so much more than I could ever do. I know Ranty would have preferred if you weren't doing every other presentation, but so be it. You know, this stuff needs to be addressed, and if there's an issue with somebody being keen to actually address these in a substantial way, which I don't want to, I've got to be honest. I did want to address it until I saw the quantity of it, and I was like, oh, this is really daunting, I haven't got time to do it. But for anybody who's moaning that you've done most of the work and they may have been led to be under the impression by Ranty or whoever that I was going to do this presentation, I'm going to give them a twofer. So I'm going to also debunk Gem Panda in one statement, just so it makes it fair and it rounds it up a little bit, right? So the medium that Gem Panda claimed that the journey itself took place in cannot exist next to the gas pressure that we all experience on Earth. The medium is bunk. It violates several natural laws. You cannot have gas pressure next to the vacuum of the sky, otherwise known as outer space, which is where that journey, which he detailed, claims to have taken place. Ergo, the journey did not take place. Likewise, no journeys take place through wardrobe doors into Narnia. Narnia is not real, and the vacuum of the sky is not real because the gas would fill the space. Now, while I appreciate that wasn't a single statement, more like a paragraph, it still debunks Gem Panda in exactly the same way that Quantum Eraser did, and it does cut the legs off that entire argument. There is no need to detail why the gas lamp works in Narnia based on the time dilation that they have there. The medium itself is fake. And if you prove that the medium is fake, if the sky was a vacuum, the gas we all like breathing would fill that void, because gas is expanding in all directions unless it presses upon the walls of a container. And if they are to assert that the medium they're travelling to, a light in the sky, is a vacuum, then everything they claim about that journey is immediately bunk, and about as nonsensical as the 90 logical fallacy used by Tim Osmans. There you go, that's my round out. 2 for 1, man. You can't say better than that, Ranty.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that's kind of going to be controversial. Well, I don't know. QE was quite funny, yeah, at times, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to take a little break now, and I need to call up Nathan on Skype, so we're going to listen to a bit of Gravity by Cheyenne, and when we return, we will hopefully be joined by Nathan Oakley to answer questions. I already have 3 lined up for him, so if anybody else wants to keep putting things in the side chat, I will put them to him as soon as he picks up the call.
We're up pretty high, our heads are almost in the clouds, and their feet are chained to the ground with their chains of misery. They've got a hold of me, they won't let go of me. Let go of me. They might have gravity on their side, but something's pulling us high. Got the potential to fly. So let them be what holds you back from this one incredible chance. They're lucky to have had a glance at you. Are you defy gravity? They can be cruel and mean and a huge pain. Our heads are in the clouds now. Don't let them make it rain. A smile can be the sun they're missing out on their rainy day. They might have gravity on their side, but something's pulling us high. Got the potential to fly. So let them be what holds you back from this one incredible chance. They're lucky to have had a glance at you. Are you defy gravity? You defy gravity. They say we aren't strong enough, we don't have what it takes. I say yeah, they're wrong enough, and we'll show them someday. They might have gravity on their side, but something's pulling us high. Got the potential to fly. Oh yeah, don't let them be what holds you back from this one incredible chance. They're lucky to have had a glance at you. Are you defy gravity? You defy gravity. You defy gravity. Yeah, yeah. At you, are you defy gravity?
Well, give me a couple of seconds, guys. I'm going to try and call Nathan now, and hopefully we'll have him around in just a second, so just bear with me. And here we are with Nathan. Nathan, nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Oh, can you see me?
No, but we can hear you. Oh, that was funny. We can't actually see you, but we can see a little image of you now, so it's all good. Right, okay, so I'm just going to get a few questions ready. Now then, in the meantime, in that break, we had a question from Bearded Devil, who gave a £10 super chat to ask this, Nathan. So, please explain the difference between terms atmospheric pressure, gas pressure, and pressurized gas. Keyword difference.
Difference between atmospheric pressure,
gas pressure,
and pressurized gas?
Yes.
Okay. Pressurized gas would be a gas that's been like forced into a container, so you've got more of the gas compacted closer together. So that would be my understanding of a pressurized gas. Gas pressure is just the force it exerts on the walls of its container, measured in things like psi. And what was the third one? Atmospheric pressure. That's just the pressure in our general surroundings. Hope that's satisfactory.
No. The last one was pressurized gas. Pressurized gas, atmospheric pressure, and gas pressure.
Yeah, I did that one first. So pressurized gas is like something that's been forced into a container. So you've got more of the gas, i.e. the molecules are forced to be closer together. That would be a pressurized gas.
Okay, so seeing as Tim Osmans was addressed quite heavily in that particular presentation of yours, Nathan, we're going to ask a question from Tim, who asks, are logical fallacies applicable in a one-person presentation of observations and experiments?
Well, a logical fallacy is a fallacy in logic. In other words, if your logic is not reasonable, it is in fact fallacious. It is simply fallacious logic. The scenario in which it's applied is irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you type it down, post it. If you put fallacious reasoning down on the bit of paper and put it in the post, it makes sod all difference. It's still a fallacious piece of reasoning. So I don't really understand his argument there. I noticed Jem Panda said something similar. He's like, logical fallacies only apply in debate. Oh, really? So you write them down and poster them up on a billboard, and suddenly that fallacious reasoning isn't fallacious anymore, is it, Jem, you stupid twat? And you, Tim. Fuck quit.
Okay, so I'm just going to address Lone Hyena before I actually make a few more comments that were said earlier. So yeah, as regards his question, which is basically not to let QE take over the show, essentially I don't want people returning to do presentations many times. I was quite clear with John about that. And
look, saying anti-right. If everybody does a little, I have to do virtually nothing.
Yeah, I kind of got that in the presentation that you put forth. So we have Jose Jonge Gonzalez says, Ranty Flat Earth, a question for Nathan. Why couldn't he do his presentation by himself? Why is QE here?
It's because I'm dumb and need help. That's why.
Okay. Is that your answer?
Yeah, dumb, yeah.
Okay, from Chris Cruel. Here is my question. If you're noting questions now, QE, so I'm not, because QE isn't here, obviously I'm going to have to ask you, have you ever heard of the fallacy, and do you think you fall into it?
So the fallacy is to assert that simply because a fallacy has been used, it ultimately means that something's not true. So for this, I can never think of one of these on the spot, but if for the sake of the argument, right, your outcome is to state that a car is red in colour, and we'll, for this example, accept from the beginning that the car we're using in this example is red in colour, and you use a logical fallacy to come to the conclusion that the car is red in colour, doesn't ultimately mean that the car isn't red simply because it's been asserted using logical fallacy. So that's the fallacy. Are we guilty of the fallacy? No. Hope that answers your question.
It wasn't my question, but whose question? Chris. It was Chris Cruel's question. So, from Sean Hawkins, he basically just wants you to show us one piece of credible, irrefutable, demonstrable evidence of flat Earth?
You had it behind you during Tim Osmans' presentation. It was comical. So you've got a picture of Barrow in Furness at 18 miles. And for us on the flat Earth side, that picture requires absolutely zero explanation. If they say, why do you see it? Well, because I've got a set of eyeballs. I just see it. There it is. It's there. I see it. End of explanation for a flat earther. Zero explanation required. As conceded by several globe heads on flat earth debate, including Dean the Fundy, who made it perfectly clear after modelling that very observation with his reification fallacy of a globe that he can't see it and he needs to explain why and use his reification model assuming that perspective isn't real and that we see the side of our own heads in every observation. He needs to explain it with a lot of caveats and a lot of presupposition, i.e. your fundamentalist sphere belief has a massive problem with the very picture behind Ranty's head while Tim Osmans making his logical fallacies, 90 of them. So, if you want to see flat earth proof, check out Ranty's channel. There's loads of them. If you want a whole list of them, there's a presentation we've done twice, once on science versus scientists and once on ballbusters, labelled flat earth proof. Just go and check it out. But Ranty's got shed loads of obvious and observable pictures of what we observe. Simple. Now, Tim, as in his presentation, presented imagery of, let's call it, phenomena, an obstruction. Now, according to Tim, he'll assert the cause of that obstruction based on Walter Bislin's reification fallacy, assuming R. Well, that's a cause and effect relationship. So when you've got nothing to declare with a picture of the world being obviously and observably flat, there is no explanation required. But you can be damn sure when you fundies like Tim Osman apply your reification fallacy model to a picture you've taken, you're going to be asserting you've got the cause of that effect. And there's only ever one, isn't there? Earth curve. Oh, it's a bit of a foggy day, is it? No, that'd be Earth curve. Oh, we seem to be seeing an inferior mirage. No, that'd be Earth curve. Well, shouldn't that item be too small to see anyway, based on its angular size? No, Earth curve. I've put the feet and inches value into my Earth curve calculator, and guess what my Earth curve calculator says is the cause of that? Well, you'll be shocked. It's Earth curve. What about all these other factors that can cause that? Oh, well, they're just excuses made by flat earthers. Number one on the list, perspective. Because apparently, perspective's just an excuse, according to Tim Osman. Like, he doesn't experience this in every waking moment that he's got his eyes open. Clearly not. Fundamentalist assertion that perspective is simply an excuse for what he'll blame on Earth curve. Yeah, not an excuse, a way of life.
Okay, we've had another super chat, I believe, again from Bearded Devil, who asks, Nathan, are you claiming we are in a container of compressed gas? And thank you very much for the super chat, by the way, Bearded Devil.
There's a logical inference that can be made. It was made beautifully the other day by Brenda. So she drew that logical inference, which is to say that if you have gas pressure, the necessary antecedent for gas pressure is something to press upon. So you can make that logical inference. You can make that logical inference based on what I explain using laws like Boyle's law and the second law of thermodynamics. If you want to draw that logical extrapolation from that information and those natural laws, you are entitled to do so. I, however, choose not to make that connection and overtly state it. And the reason is simple. I don't have to. I'm not claiming to know what the sky is. But people like Tim Osman, who babble on incessantly about the bloody lights in the sky, they do claim to know what those things are. And they have a positive assertion about what the sky is. They say it's a vacuum. Yeah? Well, no, I can crap all over that all day long. And when some tosser like Jem Panda comes along and says that they've travelled through a second law of thermodynamics violation, I crap all over that as well, just like QE did. Cut the legs off it at the beginning of the argument. I'm afraid the medium you're claiming exists, told to you by your pseudoscience priests, violates a couple of natural laws. Yeah? One of them being that the gas is going to want to increase entropy. And if it's got nothing to bounce off of, it's just going to keep expanding into the endless void you claim journeys travel to lights in the sky take place. Yeah, bullshit. And I'll crap all over that all day long because you, fundies, who believe you live on a sphere, you make a positive assertion about what the bloody sky is. I don't, and I don't have to. Sorry, am I some sort of practitioner of the sky? Have I got some sort of understanding from the world around me that I am the purveyor of sky information? No. I don't claim to know what the sky is, and I don't need to. I'm not making any claims in that regard. But I'll crap all over the idea that it's a bloody vacuum all day long, with a couple of natural laws that hold true always. Don't have to like it, fundies. And you can debunk the crap that goes along with your bloody reification of a sky vacuum based on mathematical constructs that you're never going to prove. You can do that. I'll just take a dump on it. What's that you say? Does that mean we've got a dome? I don't know. I'm not claiming what the sky is. Fundies like Tim Osman and Jem Panda do, though. They say it's a vacuum. Oh, really? Nod your head, ladies and gentlemen, towards the sky and ask yourself, would the gas I'm breathing still be here if the sky was a vacuum? I assure you, it would not. Debunking any notion of a sky vacuum. Don't need to make any claims. None made. And I won't make any.
He's put another super chat in and he's asking, it's either yes or no. Do you or do you not?
Oh, so this bearded devil is telling me that I have to answer yes or no. Oh, bearded devil. Oh, I can do that too. You have to suck my balls. So you must do this. It's either yes or no to you sucking my balls. Yeah, there's your answer. Suck my balls. Once you've done that, we'll talk about your yes or no answer that you're demanding.
Okay, we have a question from GPS. Nathan, how does GPS work in detail, please, on flat Earth?
Why? What relevance does that have? The global position. Global. Presupposing sphere. Yeah, global.
He's asking if you know how it works and would you be able to explain it?
I'm not a GPS engineer. Contact your local TomTom dealer.
Okie dokie. So let's see who else we've got in. Just looking for some other questions. Bear with me. So a bit earlier on, Brenda was saying that she wants evidence. Evidence of the flat Earth, Nathan.
Sorry, can you say that again? Just caught up beating my child. You'll have to excuse me. Ranty, ask your next question.
Okay, so Brenda asked earlier on, she said she's after evidence of the flat Earth. Evidence.
Yeah, didn't we cover this earlier when I talked about the pictures behind you that don't need an explanation whatsoever from a flat earther, but require you to reify a sphere with an R value, presuppose that you've got terrestrial refraction at 7/6R, which you will then massage to bring back a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of Barrow Inverness from behind an Earth curve that you can't see based on your reification, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking mathematics. That's what you've got to do for the picture behind Ranty when he was doing Tim Osmans' presentation. Me, I just say one word. Building. What's that you say? Why? Oh, because I've got a set of eyeballs. That's my answer as a flat earther. No evidence. You're having a laugh, love.
Sean Hawkins thinks you're being hypocritical. I think that's just a comment.
Hawkins smells.
From Pepga Lull, question: does you know that entropy can decrease locally? What the law says is that it has to increase globally.
Globally? That's a presupposition of a globe, right? So why are we reifying the globe in this example? So I'm not going to make an example that starts with the presupposition that things are happening globally. We don't live on a globe. I don't get the insistence that I must beg the question along with these fundies.
We have an interesting question here from Guess Who says, Nathan, on Tuesday there was an eclipse in Argentina, but the sun was in the UK. Sorry, but the sun in the UK was completely unaffected. How?
What should I know?
Okay, looking for some more questions in the chat. Come on guys, you got Nathan here, he's ready to answer your questions. It's not often they have you at the end of the call, ready to answer the questions, is it, Nath?
Again, it's not what, sorry?
It's not often that they have you ready and willing to answer questions at the end of a call. You know, all they have to do is put the question in the chat.
Lots of statements going by, not very many questions.
From David Gregory, Nathan, can you cite any published evidence that suggests that diffraction is responsible for objects disappearing from the bottom up?
Yeah, it's quantified in the Rayleigh criterion. Cite something, yeah, go type in Rayleigh criterion. Simple.
From Nick, could you ask Nathan what Boyle's gas law is and under which two conditions it applies?
Wants me to quantify about volumes of container increasing and decreasing.
I'll repeat the question verbatim, so that way I'm not influencing anything. Could you ask Nathan what Boyle's gas law is and under which two conditions it applies?
Boyle's gas law is in principle saying that the pressure of the gas is dictated by the volume of the container that it's in.
Okay, we have confirmed from Bearded Devil. I'll do the I'll do the shout out because he gave a super chat. Confirmed. Nathan believes we live in a giant tank of compressed gas. That was
no compressed gas would be the description I gave earlier. So, I mean, I'm still wrapping my head around why we want to know about Boyle's law. So, you know, when you compress a gas, it changes temperature. Was that the context that he was looking for? Because he asked for two different. What was it he asked for? Two different situations. This is the question before this one that you're asking now.
With Boyle's law?
Yeah.
The mediums, the two mediums that it applies to, or the two conditions it applies to.
The conditions. I don't know. Boyle's law speaks to pressure and temperature, and it being, you know, what's the word? Related, proportionally. There you go. That's as good as I can do on the fly. Sorry. Maybe ask him to give a bit more context to what he wants, because I maybe haven't answered his question. What was the question afterwards?
The question afterwards, I forget now. We'll just move on. Can you ask Nathan what was his best flat Earth evidence, and what does he lean on the most personally? So that was from the Mind of God. So you can read into that how you would choose to phrase that.
Okay, I mean, this might not satisfy him, but it's my answer, because it's none of the things that get presented on the debate or argued about. It's just my own personal experience. So, speaking personally, when Math Powerland mentioned Flat Earth, it was the comprehension of it was instantaneous, because I'd been an international rep. So when I was working for an electronics manufacturer, I was going out all over the world flying, and overland, oversea, I was the guy at the back of the plane looking out the window, because it had a nice wide viewing angle from the emergency exit door, or the entrance and exit door, whatever you call it. And there was no seats in the way, so you could sort of tilt your head back and forward and have a really good look. And only recently I had Pillbox on the debate, and he showed us a film of a flight. And everyone on the show was in awe of it. They're like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I got to experience that all the time, stuff like that. You know, watching a sunset from altitude, and, you know, seeing the sun and the moon, seeing the flat plane that we dwell atop. And one of the things that went through my mind, because I was reasonably well genned up on the heliocentric model, was that we can't see curve from cruising altitude. It's just simply not high enough to observe curvature. So I was at the back, fully indoctrinated, going, I wish I could go higher. You know, I really wish I could see the curve at whatever 70, 80,000 feet, if only, you know, maybe if Concorde was still around, maybe one day. Those were the thoughts going through my head. Now, the inverse of those thoughts, through indoctrination, I might add, was look how flat it is. That's essentially what I'm saying to myself day after day on these flights. Look how flat it is. I'm not saying those exact words. I'm actually saying I wish I could see curve, if you follow my drift. So when Math Powerland's like, yeah, flat Earth, I'm like, holy fuck, it's flat. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've observed the place that we live, and having seen it with my own eyes, it immediately made sense. So yeah, that's just my personal experience with it. As much as we can qualify these things with photographs that are in debate, like Ranty's picture, there's plenty of visual or photographic or video evidence of the flat plane we dwell atop. It does not present any curvature. It simply presents perspective. And when you find out that the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator uses orthographic representations of our world, you immediately know it doesn't include perspective, and yet you observe perspective every single time you do anything ever with your eyes or with a camera or with a camcorder. Perspective is there. So knowing that they exclude that simply tells you that the only claim cause of curvature is a hijacking of perspective. We do observe perspective. Things do get too small to see. That is simply not accounted for in an orthographic representation of a reification known as the heliocentric model. So that's where I stand now in terms of why I absolutely unequivocally know the Earth is flat. But back when I first heard it, that was the reasons I came to the conclusion so quickly, because I'd experienced it myself. Okay. Hope that answers your question.
So we had another super chat again from GPS, who asks, can Doppler shifts show transmitter speed?
Can Doppler shifts show transmitter speed?
That was a question.
I don't know. so I don't. What random question? I have no idea.
Okay. So we've had quite a few different questions in the chat, but one keeps popping up, so I will ask you it because I've seen it quite often. So if you don't want to ask it, if you don't want to answer it, don't answer it. But here we go. Can you ask Nathan if he would talk to people in person as he does on his show?
Do I talk to people in person? If needs must, yes, absolutely. I've spoken to people like that. It entirely depends on how a conversation in person goes. So typically, a conversation in person, if I was standing face to face and literally saying something right now, while I was in mid-sentence, they wouldn't start talking over the top of me. If they did it about 15 or 20 times, you could be pretty sure I'd get pissed off. But typically, the rules of etiquette are more stringently adhered to when you're in person rather than online. So would the circumstances arise as frequently as they do? No. Would I behave how I behave always as I do? Yes. My name is Nathan Oakley. It's slapped all over my YouTube channel. This is it, as raw as it gets. I don't put any airs and graces and pretend to be someone I'm not. This is just me. If you think, prick, you get too angry, yeah, maybe. You're entitled to your opinion. But this is it, heart on my sleeve, that's how I am.
Okay, so I will ask this question from the Rumpus actually, because it is quite a question that I've seen him ask before. So, ask how.
Do I have to answer?
Sorry.
Just on principle, I might not answer, but go on.
How can there be pressure difference at different heights in the atmosphere without a container? Also, why doesn't air in a zone of high pressure move to the low pressure zone?
Right, so ask those in two separate questions. I'll give them a bash, Rumpus, just for you. Mr. Air Atmo is not the atmosphere. Atmo meaning air. Air is not the atmosphere. Quote Rumpus 2016.
Okay, so how can there be pressure difference at different heights in the atmosphere without a container?
Without the container, as in the circumstances of this fundamentalist sphere belief, there's a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum next to gas pressure. So there'd be no gradient, there'd be no nothing. We'd be at 10 to the minus 17 torr at sea level instantaneously. That's what debunks his fundamentalist assertion that we live on a sphere flying through a vacuum, because the gas would fill the space. So yeah, there'd be no gradient in his fundamentalist sphere world of sky vacuums. The gas would just immediately expand in all directions. There wouldn't even be a chance for a gradient to form in his sphere world. If the rock started without an atmosphere, instantaneously, if any gases were formed, they'd immediately disperse into the vacuum. There wouldn't be any way or means without a container for the gases to form at all. because gas pressure requires something to press upon. It's a simple antecedent-consequent relationship, the necessary antecedent for gas pressure being a container. So in his open systems, without any container whatsoever on a sphere world, you're not going to be getting pressure gradients, and in the argument, when it comes upon a debate, the first question I ask in response is, where'd you get the gas pressure from in the first place? So his open system sphere world, like I say, where are you going to get the gas pressure? Because the one has to follow the other. First you have gas pressure, the necessary antecedent being a container, then you have gas pressure gradients. Now, I've dodged his question a little bit, so I'll answer it. We have gas pressure gradients because we live in a dynamic system. The gas is being created at the ground level, therefore the greatest concentration thereof. Simple. What was the second question?
Why doesn't air in a zone of high pressure move to the low pressure zone?
Why doesn't what?
Air in a zone of high pressure move to the low pressure zone.
What air? What high pressure? Is he talking about the weather? I'm not a meteorologist. So, how the dynamic system functions is, in the hands, in terms of description, often wrong, of meteorologists. I am not one. However, what I will say is we live in a dynamic system. It's just as simple as that. And the creation of gases, the turbulence in this dynamic system, all of the different pressure changes are part of that dynamic system. Only possible if it was contained. You wouldn't have gas pressure in the first instance if you didn't have the necessary antecedent in play.
So here's a question that's right up your street, actually. What is the effect of field of view, i.e. In brackets zoom, on angular size of objects? Does the Rayleigh criterion associated with your eyes also apply to cameras, telescopes? That's basically the question. So do you want me to read that again?
It's based on the aperture. So the size of the thing you're looking at, what is it, measured in radians in the calculator, I believe, and then the size of the aperture will give you the calculation to work out what the diffraction limit will be. So it's simply calculable in terms of not the lens but the aperture. So I kind of understand your question, but it's a little bit informed. If you zoom in terms of what you're being presented with on your viewfinder or on your little camera picture screen, whatever you call it. What do they call that on a camera? What do you call the screen? Just screen. Not a viewfinder, is it?
I'm not helping you.
It's only camera terminology. I'm not. Anyway, well, thank you, Ranty. Bloody hell.
That's part of the show.
Okay, I'm on my own. Right. When you look at your little screen on the back of your camera and you zoom in, obviously the thing's going to get bigger, but that doesn't affect the diffraction limit. So the diffraction limit is going to be calculable based on the equipment itself and the aperture. And then how big something that you are looking at in the distance will dictate whether or not it reaches or breaches the diffraction limit. So obviously the angular size of something gets smaller as it gets further away, and eventually it will reach the point where it breaches the diffraction limit. Now, that could be increased if you got something with a bigger aperture. So the way this works, I know this is a gripe for Ranty, but I'm on my own here, so I'll just say whatever I like, even though it involves Ranty directly. So Mark Sargent says, "Oh, you just got to zoom in, and there the boat will come back." Well, no. In reality, ignoring your own eyeballs, you pick up an iPhone and you look at a boat in the distance going out a couple of miles, and the thing disappears because the aperture on the iPhone's absolutely tiny. Then you pick up a compact camera with a 10 times zoom, and what do you know? It's there again because you've got a bigger aperture. So despite it having reached the diffraction limit of an iPhone with a small aperture, you could zoom in again with your 10 times zoom compact camera. And eventually the boat carries on into the distance, reaches and breaches the diffraction limit, and becomes too small to see. Now, I'm ignoring all of the facts that do definitely take place, and by Tim Osmans, as he's on the subject of this particular show, are just claimed as excuses. No, these things do happen. It's number one on their list of quote-unquote excuses, otherwise known as, I'll call this Earth curve. But yeah, your boat gets too small to see in the 10 times zoom camera, and you pick up a P900. And then you zoom in, and it comes back, having disappeared due to the aperture of your compact camera. And the same thing applies with a boat in a P900 or P1000, similar aperture, I believe. Your boat disappears into the diffraction limit and it's gone, to all intents and purposes, regardless, once you've reached the maximum zoom. Now you pick up a telescope with a bigger aperture and you can bring it back even more. But eventually you will reach the point where you have no further equipment with a bigger aperture to bring that thing back from beyond the diffraction limit, formerly known as the only cause asserted by the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, which is to say you'll call that shit Earth curve, right? Well, no, things have a diffraction limit. It's calculable in the Rayleigh criterion.
Yeah, I just want to address the chat a little bit because essentially I have a duty of care to protect the guest from sort of questions that are going to be just trick questions because, for instance, Sean Hawkins is asking to ask you what is the best aperture you should use for the least diffraction. Well, that should be pretty easy for you to actually research. It seems like you're asking that question to test Nathan's ability to repeat verbatim what that actually is.
You're not dating diffraction with the aperture. You calculate the diffraction limit of the aperture. So your question's malformed. Clearly you don't even understand what you're talking about. What is diffraction, Sean, bonehead?
Right, but what I'm trying to say is that anything that comes through that's literally going to be asking questions about, obviously they asked you to explain Boyle's law and stuff like that. Well, you can just type Boyle's law and find that out. So I think the probing to sort of test and to try and trick you, catch you out, so that I don't think that's really fair.
Well, so far, I don't mind. Someone comes up with Boyle's law, and I understand generally what Boyle's law is. I haven't got Google at my fingertips.
Okay.
So I'll fumble my way through it. If they're looking to embarrass me by my lack of knowledge of a particular law, then that's fine. I don't mind people picking me apart on stuff that I talk about. And if I do have a limited knowledge of it, I'll just make it clear what I do and don't understand about any given subject. I'm not embarrassed by my lack of knowledge. It's humbling.
Okay, so from Hannah Anderson, who gave a super chat. Nathan, what keeps our atmosphere from floating away from the Earth since you deny gravity?
Gravity didn't hold the atmosphere to the Earth in the heliocentric system in the first place. Gravity, as a force, does not overcome entropy in the heliocentric system. So again, the question's malformed and loaded because it doesn't even work that way. Gravity isn't holding the atmosphere on. It never was. That was never an argument. I try and get this through to Anthony when he's like, yay, gravity's not a force. Yeah, they can't tell us that gravity's holding the atmosphere on. It never was. It never defeated entropy. That was never an argument. So what was their actual question? What's holding it on? Yeah, I don't know what the fucking sky is. Didn't I cover this earlier? Yeah, I don't make a claim about what the sky is. You fundies who think you live on a sphere claim it's a bloody vacuum. And I will take a crap on that all day. And there's absolutely no necessity whatsoever for me to claim what the sky is. Yeah? I am not the purveyor of what the sky is. Why do you want to know from me? Is it because you want to kneel at me with what I declare the sky is? Because you're so used to kneeling at the priests of heliocentric declaration about what your sky is? I look at the sky and don't know what it is. You look at the sky and go, I've been told it's a vacuum. Yeah? No, it isn't. That's what I pull apart. No necessity for me to make a claim in that regard just so you can pull that apart. I don't know what the sky is and I've never claimed to. You can be damn sure your heliocentric priests will tell you what the sky is. Jem knows all about it. They've got all sorts of bullshit stories going on about that medium that can't exist. He'll babble on about it, ignoring the fact, claiming that he hasn't been debunked by the fact you can't have that medium. Yeah? But when I point this out to you fundies, that your medium's a joke and can't exist and violates natural laws, you go, well, what is it then? I don't fucking know. How the hell should I know? I don't know what the sky is. Doesn't mean I can't crap on the people who tell you they do when they're lying.
Okay, so from George Netanyuk, question: can entropy be reduced locally yet be increasing elsewhere? Now he's asked that a few times, so.
Yeah, you can reduce entropy. Yeah, you can slow down the effects of entropy while it's increasing in other areas. What a stupid question. Yes, of course. What's your point, you stupid old man?
So I think I'm gonna.
Ranting, I'm shouting at him right now. Hello, Yuck. What's your point, you stupid old bonehead?
Okay, we'll see if he responds to that. So a question again from Moyak Man. Nathan, why does the 14.7 psi at ground level not instantly normalise with the 4 psi at the top of Mount Everest?
We've already covered this. Dynamic system, gases are produced at ground level.
So earlier on, Brenda said that if you had a dynamic system, that would be that would breach the laws of the second law of thermodynamics. Would you agree with that?
No. Or shit. Cite that. Tell her to post a citation in your chat. I'll have a look at it if she's got a citation that claims that a dynamic system would breach in any way the second law of thermodynamics. We absolutely have a dynamic system, and the law of thermodynamics hold true. So she's just talking shit. If the very nature of our own existence, having a dynamic system taught to children in primary school, violated a natural law, it wouldn't be a natural law anymore. She's just talking utter nonsense. Yeah, you go and claim your Nobel Prize if you think you violated a natural law by declaring that we've got a dynamic system. You complete retard.
So from Spurs Chemo, now he's very keen on asking this question because it's about the 8th time he's posted this.
No, not answering Spurs' question about does gas exist. It does.
Okay, it's along those lines. You don't want to answer that though.
You can answer. You can ask, but if it's about whether or not gas is real. I'm preempting it. I haven't got your chat up, so I don't know what.
The gas pressure of 14.7 was derived with gravity. How did they measure this pressure? Can this be demonstrated?
Derived with gravity. Again, post a citation. What the hell is he talking about?
The Rumpus is quite upset. I think this is about the 10th time he's done it. So there is a pressure difference in atmosphere. Oh, bloody hell. I hate that when that happens. I'm waiting 1 sec. I've just lost it. It just popped up. Right, so there is a pressure difference in atmosphere at different heights. How this can be without a container separating different pressures? Why doesn't air flow to equalise pressures?
Yeah, I've already said it about 15 times. Dynamic system. Yeah? What you need to explain is how that's possible without the walls of a container to press upon. Maybe a demonstration.
Okay, Nathan, is it possible for an atmospheric pressure of nearly 0 to sit next to a partial vacuum with a pressure of nearly 0? And if not, why?
No. Why? Oh, because it violates the second law of thermodynamics.
Okay, so from Brenda von Assen, you can have a dynamic system under the second law without interrupting inputting energy into the system. So I don't know whether that's her changing a claim.
Nice. Does the sun input energy into this system? What do you reckon, Ranty?
I'm not getting involved.
Well, let me just declare it then. The sun definitely puts energy into this system. Now, Arwin might argue that it's the sky and that the point of light you see has nothing to do with the energy that's being produced. I just say that's bollocks, because the sun's definitely putting energy in.
Okay, so the chat's flying by 1,000,000 miles a second, and I've just caught somebody saying, that is somebody taking notes of questions that aren't answered. So, so some of the people that have actually posted questions right now, if you could just sort of like back off for a time, and just let some other people post a few questions, because it would appear that I'm either missing them or not seeing them or something like that. So I'm going to round up in 10 minutes anyway. So we've got 10 more minutes, finish at 5:02. So yeah, 10 minutes should be enough for another 5 questions or so. So get posting, guys. It's like having your toes on the fire, isn't it, Nath?
Really?
No? You enjoy this?
I don't mind. I'm doing it to support you and your show, Ranty.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. It really is.
Gem Panda, they don't teach kids things in primary school that violate natural laws, but they teach them the solar system and space, which, according to Nathan, violates a natural law. Can you explain? Yeah,
teachers, like conspiracy cats, just lie to children. in the face of understanding where their rhetoric taught in schools doesn't meet natural laws. So, yeah, teachers are lying. Now, is it their fault if they don't know that? No. If they do know it, like people like Conspiracy Cats and Charles, Flat Earth Math, then those people disgust me because they understand at a base level that you can't have gas pressure without a container. Let's give a quote just to make my point. Without the container, there can be no pressure. Conspiracy Cats, 2019. And then when in a demonstration or an example for exactly this point, he also said, without the balloon, there is no pressure. The balloon being a container of gas pressure. So at a fundamental level, some teachers, like Conspiracy Cats, understand that their rhetoric doesn't work, but they'll continue to lie to children anyway. Those people, at a fundamental level, disgust me.
Okay, so we've had another super chat, so I will read that again. How, question mark, explain how near zero pressure next to near zero pressure violates the second law of thermodynamics.
Oh, entropy. Yeah, the gas would fill the space. So gas, which has no bonds, so it's not attached to Earth being dragged along with it or any of that shit. There's no bonds. You know, completely free to move in all directions randomly and expand to fill the container that it's in. Now, if you've got a vacuum and the gas can increase in entropy, in other words, expand in all directions until something stops it, like a wall, the wall of a container, for example. But if your wall isn't a wall and is actually a lower pressure system, an infinitely expanding 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, then you know what the gas is going to do? It's not going to get to that vacuum and go, you know what I might do? I might turn around and go back randomly of my own volition. No, it'll just keep going. It'll just keep going until equilibrium is reached. That's essentially what the second law of thermodynamics is describing, the increase in entropy. Equilibrium would reach, and we here at sea level would be at 10 to the minus 17 torr also, because the gas would fill the space. Hope that answers your question.
From Stone Monkey 3D, can Nathan suggest how to demonstrate 5 psi at Everest next to 14 psi the way he asks for a vacuum to be demonstrated?
Well, that's self-evident. He's just described it. But I'll say it again. We live in a dynamic system, and the production of gases is at ground level. So you're not having all of the gases produced halfway up or at the top of Everest. Not very many gases being produced there, my friend. Hence the concentration is lower. Shock, horror. About the 5th time I've said this. Try to pay more attention to what's being said and less attention to what's being typed.
No point asking that. From Gem Panda, so when Nathan said that they don't teach kids things that violate natural laws, is he now saying that they do?
Yeah, you want to catch me out in a contradiction? Yeah, things that hold true can be validated. Just because it's taught in schools doesn't make it true. But natural laws, they definitely hold true. So where Brenda says that having a dynamic system violates a natural law, my point that they teach you about this specific thing in school to make my example that Brenda's incorrect in her assertion that something taught in schools in this regard, i.e. dynamic systems, which are easy to verify, unlike your fundamentalist belief in a sky vacuum, that you've got journeys to a light in the sky in Gem Panda. You ain't validating that shit in a hurry now, are you, my friend? You just rely on your priests. But I assure you, dynamic system, yeah, nice and easy to verify that we definitely have gases being produced at ground level, and it shits all over Brenda's assertion that that's a violation of a natural law. Because if it was, it wouldn't be a natural law anymore. But you can try with your clever little trick there, Jem, to think that you've caught me out in a contradiction. No, my friend. Your sad, feeble attempt to demonstrate me to be in contradiction is weak. However, you, with your fundy belief in a sky vacuum and men travelling in little rockets with their funny wizard suits on, yeah, you hold that, my friend, while the natural law still holds true. The gas would fill the medium that your claimed journey of space travel took place in, Jem. You're a fundamentalist religious zealot, and you will never show a demonstration of the second law violated, ever. And Brenda's little assertion, which is what I was crapping on, by demonstrating that something that is absolutely demonstrable, i.e. dynamic system that we experience daily, yeah, they talk about it on the telly, surprisingly. What, the weather? Yeah, Jem, they talk about it all the time. We definitely experience a dynamic system, my friend. I don't have to go very far to prove that. But you definitely need to go some way to prove that we've got a second law of thermodynamics violation right above our heads. Because you haven't been there, have you, my friend? But your priests have. All hail Tyson. All hail NASA. They said it was true. I believe them. Right, Jem, you pathetic little twat? You believe them. You're not travelling up to the sky vacuum. You're not verifying it like I can verify a dynamic system taught to school children. Yeah? No, my friend. You just believe that shit because you're a fundy zealot. You haven't been there, and you never will. It's not real. It's like Narnia. You can't have a sky vacuum. Entropy would increase, as I've explained to several of the other dickhead commenters who don't seem to listen. Hope that answers your question, Jem.
Okay, so final question. It really isn't a question, but it was a statement by somebody typing in capital letters. So he obviously believes this. So this was from Maxwell Smart, and I'd like your input on this, Nathan. So it says, Flat Earth says that the Earth is a disc. If in fact it's a disc like a frisbee, then there's an edge, basic observation. What would you say to that, Nath?
So it's bullshit. We don't claim that. So if flat earthers are out there claiming that the Earth is a disc, go and have a good laugh at them. Models are pseudoscience. We don't live on a model. That's the fallacy of reification, or misplaced concretedness. I'm not going to say. I'm going to butcher this. Hypothesization. I've bit my tongue, right? That's why I can't say it. Fuck you. Right. Anyway. That would be reification. So we don't live on a model, and all those people out there that are claiming to be flat earthers that talk about models are just as bad as the globe heads. It's part of the reason we're in this mess that we're in already, using models to assert why things are being caused. So why is that building being obstructed? Oh, well, because my model says blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't give a crap about the globe model. I don't give a crap about flat earthers claim models. It's just a fallacy of misplaced concreteness. We don't live on a model. The map is not the terrain. That is a reification fallacy. And we, Ranty included, I will speak for him in this instance, do not claim we live on a model. We don't claim that a global projection called the azimuthal equidistant global projection is ours. Some do. I don't. That's just nonsense. So I'm not going to defend a model that I don't claim. If I haven't got a model, I've got no model to defend. Noticing that the Earth is obviously and observably flat does not require modelling.
Okay, and just a response to Shiftless Turd Sniffer, who says that the questions are scripted and I only ask those questions. Not really, but when your question is literally this. Question, please ask Nathan if he craps in or out of a container. Ask him. Troll. Cook. I mean, come on, really? Do you really think that question is actually worth asking? But I'm sure Go on.
Do you want me to show you that I've not got a script or anything?
Go ahead.
There you go. There's me without a script or a keyboard or anything. Can you see me?
You might show up. Hang on, let me just see. We can see. You can literally see your mouth and nose because you're on a little mini. Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
That worked.
That was so funny. Oh man, I have to ask this now because, I have to address this. JQ says, I could listen to Nathan do this all day, and he's given a $10 super chat, so thank you very much. Right, Nathan.
Who was that?
That was from JQ.
Thank you, JQ. I really appreciate it.
Right, so you have 5 minutes if you want to say anything, Nathan. If you want to plug your show, if there's anything you want to talk about, you've got it completely to yourself. I'll go on mute.
Yeah, sure. There was something I was going to plug. I'll see if I can find it while I'm plugging my show. So my multitasking skills put to task, right? Okay, so check out at 2 p.m. UK time the Flat Earth debate, which goes out live daily, Monday to Sunday, 2 p.m. And also the Flat Earth debate uncut and after show, essentially the pre-show and after show, which goes out 10 p.m. daily. And in order to catch it on that schedule, you need to be subscribed to both Nathan Oakley 1980 and my second channel, which is called Nathan Oakley. So providing you're subscribed to both Nathan Oakley channel and Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, you can catch both Flat Earth debate, uncut and after show at 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. UK time daily. So check out both of those shows. There was something I was going to hopefully get you to actually show, but I don't think I'm going to be able to find it in time. Just give me a couple of seconds, because there was something else I wanted to plug. There was an article, it was very lengthy but very in-depth, an interview with Patricia Steer, and it was written by Noel J. Hadley. Unfortunately, I can't find the link in time to do it, but at least I've got his name written down here. But he did a very lengthy interview with Patricia Steer about her exit from this community. And if you can dig it out, I'm sure you won't have to look very far if you just type in Noel, Noel J. Hadley, Hadley, Patricia Steer interview. You should come across it. It'll take you a while to read, but well worth checking out. Her extremely detailed and very frank and open explanation for her experiences and ultimate departure from Flat Earth. So definitely go and check that out. Who else can I plug? Check out Arwin, Arwijn, who runs the Flat Earth Early Bird Show, and that runs at UK time 1 p.m. daily, followed by the Flat Earth Debate Live at 2 p.m. And then obviously a massive shout out to my host, who's been exceptionally cordial and very even-handed, excellent in his delivery. And that's a massive, huge, enormous shout out to Sleeping Warrior, who's just absolutely fantastic. I love him. I mean, Ranty Flat Earth. I'm only kidding, mate.
No worries. Thank you very much for turning up at such late notice. So, from Bearded Devil, confirmed, Nathan believes we live in a giant... Oh, no, that was an old one. My screen froze, but yeah. Right, okay, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for stopping by. I do appreciate the effort that you went to make that presentation, Nathan. It was thoroughly enjoyable, I think, to everybody in chat. And yeah, I think we'll round up. I do have another show starting in a little over an hour, so that will be BM Furball, who's a globe earther. And this time he's going to be talking about a few different things that you guys would not want to miss, I'm sure, because he's put a lot of work into that presentation. So that will be starting in a little under an hour from now. Thank you, Del West Watson, again for the super chat. I'll second that, JQ. Nate is ace with a £10 super chat. Right, thank you very much, and I'll see you all in the next one.